Hi all, welcome to the Coffee Break podcast where each month we interview a creative in the film and entertainment industry. It could be a producer, director, actor, a screenwriter, or all of the above. We'll dive into their journeys and stories behind their work. My name is Lester Platt, I'm the CEO of Still Studios, and I'm happy to welcome our dear friend Stan, film director.
Hello.
Have you been? Thanks for taking the time to come to the hot chair and share your story with us.
You're very welcome, and thank you very much for having me. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I would like us to start with your beginnings, so to understand, where you're coming from, the backstory, and everything.
well, I started late, so I wasn't in the film industry for most of my life. So about in 2010, 2011 is when I wrote my first script.
Okay.
And so I was about 40
Okay.
when I wrote my first script. And I just did it for fun. I didn't have any plans on going further with it. I was working on other projects in other fields.
Mm-hmm.
And things weren't going great in those other fields. And I was living in New York at the time. When I wrote that, living in the West Village, which is a very, very creative area of probably the most creative area.
I love West Village.
Yeah.
It's probably my favorite part of
Yep.
New York. Yeah.
And so it kind of encouraged me to do something creative. And so I wrote a short script. And I had a friend in San Antonio that was a filmmaker, and he had just finished making his first feature film. And so when I came back to Texas, I looked him up, and funny enough, I met him on the set of the movie Monsters, which is Gareth Edwards' first film. And I looked him up and asked him to help me make this film, and sure enough, he did. And I just completely fell in love with the process. From the writing to
You never had that experience before.
I never had done anything before.
Wow.
And once I saw the frame and saw and talked with the actors and had that experience, I pretty much told myself, okay, I'm not doing anything else. Things weren't going well anywhere, with the other things I was doing.
Yeah.
And so I just figured out, okay, so I hadn't done anything else. I'm like, okay, I have to learn everything. And so I started learning as much as I could with not just the writing, but the pre-production, production, learning about cameras, learning about lenses, learning about audio, learning about editing. And that process was a lot of fun. So it's challenging, very challenging, but it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that this is a career path, right?
Exactly.
It's so much fun, and it's stressful, of course, like any other career. But you're doing what you love. It's like it's easy to fall in love with the process, with the people that you have to collaborate with.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, and it taught me a lot. It wasn't in the other things I was doing, real estate, finance, all this other stuff. It's a different world. In film, in art, collaboration and trust and openness. And I can't imagine doing anything else. I can't go back to, the other industries where money is very important.
Yeah. It's like the center of everything you do. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I just that's my story.
That's awesome. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you were 40 when you wrote the script.
Yep, when I started. Yep.
And how long it took for you to start filming or working on that script?
It didn't take me very long to write it. Probably I knew I'd never written anything before in my life. In fact, when I was in school,
So you were just doing it like naturally.
yep, pen to paper.
Nice.
Didn't know what the format was
Yeah.
to write a script. I just wrote, and you know, when I met with my friend, he helped me fix everything,
Yeah.
get it in the format, get in the right format. But I just felt, you know, I had to write something. At the time, wasn't very happy because things weren't going well with my other career. So I just felt like I had to write something, and you know, it's so what's the word for it? Healing. When you write and you let it all out, and you create these characters, and these characters are you. They're your friends. They're your family. They're people you know, and they're a mix of them. You know, they're not always one person. So one character could be 3 people. You know, another character could be, you know, 5 people. And then the creativity of telling that story and getting it out there is just, I just can't think of doing anything
That's
else.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Can you tell me some of the challenges that you encounter when, obviously you were new in the process, but it's hard to identify the specific challenges that comes with in the film industry and stuff like that. Can you talk something up?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think you'll find all filmmakers will tell you this. It's always money, right? Especially when you're starting out.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many writers out there, and good writers, you know, and a lot of bad writers too. But it's surviving, you know, trying to, you know, move forward and with your next production. And at the time, I knew that I needed to make a lot of short films. I needed to learn the process, right? So it wasn't, I wasn't going to go make a narrative film right away.
Yeah.
You know, it's too difficult, and I didn't know enough. I didn't know how to direct. I didn't know how to, barely knew how to write, or edit or any of that. So I needed to have time to do all that, and that costs money.
Yeah.
You know, you can't.
You still have to pay bills.
You still got to pay bills, and you still, you know, you got to pay people if you can.
Yeah.
You know, the great thing about, you know, being creative is a lot of people are willing to help you. But there are some people that you just have to pay. I mean, like gaffers, grips.
Yeah.
They're not going to work for free. You know.
Yeah, 100%.
There's nothing creative for them in it. You know,
Yeah.
it's all they're working. You know, it's labor. So,
Yeah.
and it's hard work. It's not easy. So, you know, I totally understand where if I'm using their time, I have to pay them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's stuff I learned too. You
Yeah.
know, some people are willing to help to go on your journey with you. Others, you need to pay.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We were talking about radical decisions,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Can you? You're sweating already.
Yeah. So so things were going well for me in my other endeavors, and I fell in love with this career, this filmmaking career, and I'd always wanted to. You know, I learned the story of I can't remember, was it General Cortez, that when he came to America. This is way back.
Okay.
When they way back when, and he brought his army, right, from Spain. When they reached the shores and they got off the ships and they're on the beach, he ordered all his ships to be burned, right, so that everybody in his army knew there was no turning back.
Mm-hmm. They couldn't leave.
They can't leave. They either win or they die.
Yeah.
So
A little harsh.
yeah, I was always fascinated with that story. I'm like, wow. I mean, that's some commitment right there.
Exactly. A forced commitment.
So basically, I sold all my assets. You know, I had some businesses that was generating income, and I said, if I'm going to be serious about this, I don't want to turn back. Sold my businesses, invested it, sold all my assets, invested it into film to
Wow.
learn. And that was pretty radical. But I never regretted it. I always thought when I was making that decision that I would regret it one day.
Okay.
There'd be a situation where, and there were situations where I couldn't pay the bills. But I never regretted it, you know, so I don't advise it for anybody else. I really don't.
Don't sell your business.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's like those life-changing decisions, right?
Yep.
And yeah.
It's something for me, I felt like I had to do it. I had to do it. I had to follow this path. And I didn't regret it.
That's
So.
amazing. Yeah, man. Happy. And how was your thought process once you were all in,
Yep.
all business, all, you know, how was your thought process on, okay, I'm here. What's my next step?
Learn. Okay, I've got this cash. Learn, and you know, don't waste any time. You know, I had to buy software, had to buy equipment. You know, it's easier to figure out equipment if you own it.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, you have to go rent it, and you won't really only rent it if you have a production going on. In commercial. And I did that, and then and then I figured out, okay, I've got to try and earn something. I got to go do some commercials. I got to go do short films. I got to help others.
Yeah.
And I still do. One thing I realize is I cannot make commercials to save my life. I just can't do it. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I don't know how to tell a story in like 30
Like
seconds.
30 seconds.
Yeah. And that you know, that was harsh because you know, most filmmakers, that's where they survive. That's how you survive. So I didn't even have that to fall back on. So it was full steam ahead. You know, we got to learn how to create narrative, you know, as fast as possible, and I did.
So from the beginning, you were focused on learning how to tell a story in a feature film.
Exactly.
That's amazing. So, in terms of collaborations, is there any key people that you can, you know, tell that help you go to the next level?
Yeah. You know, working with you know, my old friends that helped, you know, when we made short films and commercials and stuff. That was, I really wanted to continue working with them, but something happened during the pandemic. I don't know what, but a lot of people changed, and I don't know what to make of that. But the new people that I met, my producer, my executive producer, and you know, some of the people that come on my production of the documentary, they've made all the difference in the world. I couldn't have done it without them. So, and it's very different for a documentary than a narrative film, you know.
Can you tell us in which way? Like it takes longer, like
it definitely takes
process is different.
Well, for this it took longer, and it's my fault. It's long because I'm you know, I don't do things the smart way. I think people have been telling me that all my life. I saw the film in front of my eyes when it was brought to me, and I wanted it in a certain format.
Okay.
And I had to do it that way, but that way was very, very difficult. You know, I mean, we can talk about that now. So in November of 2020, an Air Force lieutenant colonel retired called us and told us about this patriotic American in the deserts of Nevada, who lived out in the deserts of Nevada. And his ranch was between the Nellis Air Force Base and their bombing range. So these jets would fly low over his ranch on their way to the bombing range. And every time they flew over, he'd run out with a giant American flag and he'd wave it. And he did that for 45 years.
No way.
Yeah. And he eventually got his entire family, his children, his wife. And every time they'd hear the jets flying over, they'd run out and they start waving these giant American flags.
Wow.
And I heard it. So he said that the Air Force was going to honor them by doing a missing man formation flyover. And if people don't know what that is, it's usually a four-ship of airplanes that fly, and then one of them takes off to show that, the honored member is missing.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that sounds great. And he wanted us to sponsor it ourselves or find sponsors for it. And at the time, in the middle of COVID, I couldn't find anybody to sponsor a video for the family. And so I came up with the idea of, well, let's think about making a documentary. Mm-hmm. And I started asking some friends of mine that might invest. And I did. I got some investors to put up some money so I could fly out there and shoot it and interview some people and interview the family specifically, and the lieutenant colonel that called us in the beginning. And while I was doing that, while I was out there, I'm like, I was concerned about what was going on in the country, the division, right? And in a lot of ways, we still have that. Right now. And I wanted to do something. I had to do something. It was kind of like when I was writing my first script. I had to do something. I couldn't, it was tearing me apart inside, what was going on in the nation. And I didn't care if it was, if I was successful. I didn't care if it was going to be a good film. I just had to do something, So I went and started talking to my investors and tell them what my idea was, which was an anthology. Okay. That's really dumb for a documentary. Okay. For a feature film documentary, that's really dumb because basically we tell the story of 4 American heroes with the story of Evan Thompson threaded in between them, which is basically making 5 documentaries in one.
Yeah. Wow.
And that took me 4 years to do that, which isn't that long. I have friends that have made, it took them 10 years to make a documentary.
Yeah, I think documentary is probably, because it's not something that you can just go to a place, record, and everything happen in that moment.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. I mean, one of the hardest things to do was, Lieutenant Colonel Beckman, the gentleman that called us, to go out and shoot the memorial for the real American. He saved like 23 troops on the ground in Afghanistan in his aircraft, his A-10.
Whoa.
And he saved a whole lot of civilians that was being used as human shields by the Taliban.
So that was just another story right there.
That's one of the stories that's in the film.
Wow.
And the troops, I needed to get interviews, testimony, if you will, from the troops that were there that he saved. Mm-hmm. Well, that started our 3-year journey to find those guys.
Wow.
And it took us 3 years to find them. So
wow.
It was like looking for so I say it's looking for a needle in a haystack. Colonel Beckman said it's like looking for a needle in a stack of needles.
Wow.
So,
that is
it was
crazy.
not easy. So that took a long time.
You had someone in the process that was helping you, or it was just you targeting?
I was just asking everybody. And eventually I play a lot of tennis. That's my hobby. Mm-hmm. I love tennis. Almost 4 or 5 times a week I play.
Wow.
And then one of my guys I play with was a major in the Army. And I told him about the project. and he said, "Well, let me put you in touch with this colonel I know." And eventually, yeah, we found it. So
That is crazy.
it was from my tennis, from my hobby, my tennis buddy.
It's crazy how
helped
things
us.
work out, right?
Right, exactly. There's always, you call it fate, you can call it God. There's always
It meant to be.
it meant to be. Exactly.
That's
So,
amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So we were mentioning, you already mentioned investors and stuff like that. That was part of the crowdfunding stuff that you did?
No, well, I tried crowdfunding, and I learned a lot about crowdfunding. I learned how difficult it is. It is, you need to have months of lead time. I think 3 months is the minimum of preparing it, of letting people know that you're about to start this crowdfunding thing.
Yeah.
And getting the reach so people do know that you're starting this crowdfunding
more like
campaign.
a pre-launch or something.
Yeah. And it was and I had no idea what I was doing. That's a whole different skill set.
Yeah.
Now
that you experience that process, is there anything that, beside making a pre-launch, is there anything else that you will do differently if you had to run one or run another one?
I honestly, it was very difficult for me. I don't know if it's in my wheelhouse. Yeah, I don't think it's for us, unless maybe if you had some kind of celebrity or influencer,
yeah,
that could get the word out for you. But without that, how do you get people to know this?
Yeah, exactly.
We even I even took a course. I think temporarily for a little while we hired a team who does this professionally, and I couldn't figure it out. It was too difficult for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's when people like Trevor can come in the game and kind of help on the marketing.
Interesting. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Right.
So I just met Trevor, recently, and love him to death.
Yeah. That's my dude.
Yeah. So now that you tell me that, I can think about that.
Yeah, because I was thinking, listening to you, and I was thinking, just Trevor came to my mind, and because that's his
wheelhouse. Yeah.
Wheelhouse. Yeah. It's like
getting the word out. Exactly. So
so that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
So the film it's titled The Real American.
Exactly. Yep.
Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about any of the experience in the lapse of those 4 or 5 years that you mentioned in the process? Is there anything that you would like to kind of acknowledge that this is what happened, this is what I learned?
So I told you when I started in the early 2010s, my focus is always on narrative, right? So I never even thought about making a documentary. In fact, I've never really liked documentaries that much. I felt there was more truth in narrative, fictional narrative, than there was in documentaries. I always felt documentaries were a little deceiving because you're presenting fact, but what you're really seeing is opinion of the filmmaker, right? Whereas narrative is you have all these creative people that know they're telling a fake story and they're presenting it to the audience as fiction. But in order to make it a good film, the actors have to study the characters and really understand and use your imaginations to create a real character. And a lot of these characters, all these different emotions of the characters are real. So when you see that actor on the screen, there's the truth behind his performance. And I always felt that was more truthful than somebody presented a documentary and saying, this is the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's not. It's your opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you know, I think my executive producer, Dean Christensen, told me that my documentary isn't really a documentary; it's more of a movie. Because you know, truth is important to me. I think truth should be important to all artists and filmmakers.
Yeah. And I guess it's important for viewers, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. It should be.
Yeah.
It absolutely should be. So, you know, that's kind of where I land with documentaries.
That's great.
You know, and the one difference, and this I had to learn from a friend of mine at the very beginning when I first started making this documentary. I had no idea how to make a documentary, and I had a friend who was an Emmy award-winning documentary filmmaker, Thaddeus Matula. And, you know, I had all this pressure coming from all these different people, the producers, you know, the people that were involved in the documentary, they're featured in the documentary. They're like, when am I going to see a script? When am I going to see a script? I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a script for the documentary. And I'm like, I'm trying to write this script. I'm like, how do you write a script for documentaries?
Which is,
So I went to Thaddeus. I'm like, Thaddeus, I don't know could you help me? How do I write a script for a documentary? And I was like, you don't write a script for a documentary. he said, you get all your interviews, you write the script at the end when you're editing it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, and that, you know, you mean you got to learn stuff, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of the
100%.
things that I had to learn.
So you know, I enjoy filming interviews. It's like it's really kind of probably the hustle of how to light any scene, you know, how to composition and all that stuff. I truly enjoy that. And also I enjoy listening to the subject telling their story and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is there, based on your experience, is there a specific process that you follow? Like probably you listen to their story and then you were taking notes at the same time, or you took notes on post-production? How did that work for you?
You're talking about the interviews for the documentary?
Yeah, because you have to select timelines of the footage, right? Like you don't use the whole.
No, I think we used
like
probably 10% of it.
Yeah,
you know, maybe I think less than that actually. But yeah, I mean, I have an idea of what I want to put in the film, and before I interview them. I would start writing down questions of, you know, what the story is, you know, what their thoughts are, and what happened. And for me, I'm a very off the cuff kind of guy, which I think really helped with the documentary. I had my notes, I had my bullet points of the questions I wanted to ask, but
you were flexible.
Yeah, I'm having this conversation, kind of like we are now.
Yes,
I'm having this conversation with the person I'm interviewing, and I just want to know.
Yeah.
You know, so this happened here, but what happened next? You know, or when this happened, what happened to the other guy? You know, so what's going on? So I just wanted to know, and it worked. I got everything I needed.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a process, but you know, it turned out really well. So,
yeah. That's great.
I actually am very, very passionate, even though this might be one of the last documentaries I made. A lot of people say never, and I will never say never. But I love the film. This is probably my passion project.
Nice.
So
after 4 years, you said, right, of production, it's finally out of the oven already, or still in the oven?
The edit is locked. We're working on clearances right now. We're almost done with clearances. I just spoke to a composer today, so we're almost done. it's pretty much
exciting.
It should be out this year. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm really excited. I think it's a timely film. I think it does have that message of unity, which is what I planned on. And what's funny is, you know, when I first came up with this idea 4 years ago, when I was at the memorial, it's exactly what I planned. And I'm so shocked that it ended up that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It took a lot of work. You know, we did it. We made, we interviewed so many people, and a lot of people didn't make the cut, but that's how it goes.
Yeah,
You know, you got to tell the best story.
Yeah.
So
And you still have to get those interviews to kind of help you build the story.
Exactly. If I didn't have those interviews, I wouldn't know the full story.
Exactly.
I just had to talk to, I had to get that information from them. So
that's great.
yeah.
So what is the next step for you, Stan? Like, what are your thoughts? I know you have a couple films in the oven.
Yep. So I'm a sci-fi science fiction writer. I love science fiction, and I love kind of mystery horror science fiction. So my next film is called Departure. It is a science fiction film about teleportation, and I'm very, very excited about that. So looking forward to getting started on that.
Nice.
Yeah,
I remember you mentioned that you're planning to shoot Stray Vista, the virtual production.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I love those guys. Nate Strayer. Yep.
Shout out.
Shout out to Nate. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and then also, the guys that are just as important as Stray Vista is, Ace, of course, at Stray Vista, but also Narwhal, the company that programs. Because I've always wondered that, right? When I learned about volume stages, which is what Stray Vista is, we all learned. A lot of us as filmmakers learned about volume stages on the production of Mandalorian, Star Wars Mandalorian, and we all, the whole country, that and in the industry, heard about that production. And when you saw it on TV,
then, I think since the Mandalorian, everyone went nuts.
Everyone went volume, and so I always wondered, like, okay, so I get the screen, but who does all the work inside the screen?
Yeah, on real time.
Exactly. And I learned, and then I figured out it was, you had to hire these companies to do that. And Narwhal is the company that actually did Mandalorian.
That is crazy.
That started it.
And they're local to Austin, right?
No. They have an office here. They have people here.
Yeah.
But I think they're out of Washington State.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
well, keep us updated about those films, and I appreciate you taking the time, Stan. It's been great having you.
Thank you so much for having me, and anytime I'd love to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever one of those films it's out in the world,
awesome.
Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Yep,
right.
Absolutely. Cool.
All right, and all to our listeners, please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.
Thank you.